Forgot to include this programming note, so I'm putting it at the beginning of this video before the real recording on this game starts. But I probably won't be posting any videos this week after the playoff games. I am going to be out of town for a week. I'm actually going to see Kendrick Lamar, who is my favorite artist probably ever. But yeah, gonna be enjoying my time with the homies, seeing Kendrick Lamar. So just wanted to let you guys know. Wow. That was a beatdown. Goddamn. But very happy that we are getting SGA versus Anthony Edwards. Before I get ahead of myself, obviously I want to talk about the game today. This series, actually, it's been pretty dramatic. A lot of twists and turns. That game one where the Thunder just absolutely melted down towards the end of the game. Bounce back, blowout game two. Lose game three, SGA smiles afterwards. That could have been a very memeable photo for years to come. But since that photo, SGA averaging 31, 5, and 6. Bounce back game four. Incredible game five, one of the best playoff games I have ever seen. And Jokic made one of the more ridiculous shots that will unfortunately be lost in playoff history, because that Sombor 3 was ridiculous. Iron Eagles call was perfect. Calling it Joker's wild. Game 6, obviously, they made some adjustments. Jokic was able to have more favorable matchups. He was actually playing better, game 5 and game 6. And he was on a roll. And then in game 7, they put Caruso on Jokic as an adjustment, which was fantastic because Caruso was fronting, he was three-quartering, he was doing everything. Also, low-key, just, so we could be fair here, the refs were letting a lot of physicality go. Also, I should probably expand a bit more on the Caruso point. I cannot believe that the Chicago Bulls only got Josh Giddey out of this. Again, going all the way back to that trade I talked about last summer, and people got very mad at my Josh Giddey takes, and I still stand on it, even with his post-All-Star break run. Should have gotten more out of that deal. I still cannot believe the Thunder got him for that price, and he ends up being one of the more crucial parts of this series. Because I'm not going to lie, if I was Mark Daigneault, Lou Dort would have gotten a 10-minute leash from me. If he had missed one more three, it would have been a quick hook for me. Now, Lou Dort did sub back in, and he did make a three, but every time Caruso and Cason Wallace, who is also very good, came on the floor, it was just a difference in on-ball juice offensively, shooting, reliable shooting, but also just swarming around and providing much of the value that Lou Dort brings defensively, especially if Lou Dort's shot isn't, going in. And Caruso changed not only, the game today, but Mark Daigneault went with it in the second half, benched Hartenstein, and changed the entirety of that game. Great trade. But this is one of the main thoughts I had as the Thunder were looking like piranhas attacking a bear in the river when they were trying to poke and prod at Jokic, forcing all those turnovers to go on that run to end the first half. And I've thought about this for a while, but the main critique of the Thunder from a lot of people, I felt, was more so, the increased physicality of the playoffs was going to have an impact on the Thunder offensively, specifically SGA, because he, foul grifts and stuff, even though I contend SGA is not a grifter, and definitely not a grifter at the level of a Joel Embiid and James Harden, who I can tell you personally as a Sixer fan, it's not even close. But no one took into account that one of the more special defenses that I have seen in a long time would be able to benefit from that same increased physicality. And last year it happened with the Nuggets a little bit with Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., even though I thought Michael Porter Jr. was way worse in these playoffs than last year, even shoulder injury considered. But those two were not ready for the physicality today. And it showed. Aaron Gordon, unfortunately, he's going to be stamped forever because that was a gutty performance. I just can't believe early on just how much of an impact he was making, tipping the ball out for offensive rebounds, nailed a three, got an and one, was clearly just not able to move. And quite frankly, I'm concerned for him over the summer because playing on a grade 2 hamstring like that can't be good. Last time someone did that, I think it was James Harden on the Brooklyn Nets. That took a bit to recover from. So I hope AG can recover from this before the season starts because that was a gutty performance. But the Thunder's defense is just special, man. Out of all the teams in the playoffs, and even the Boston Celtics all year, even though everybody had the Celtics as their penciled-in repeat champions, the Thunder defensively, out of all the teams in the NBA, could just reach another gear that no other team could reach. Now, some of that is obviously because of the depth and the amount of good players that they have, but these dudes swipe at the ball, poke at the ball. They help and recover faster than any team in the NBA. Like last year, I thought the Timberwolves defense was just ferocious, right? But the Thunder just have another gear that even last year's Timberwolves elite defense, even they couldn't get to this, where just everybody seems locked in. Even the bigs are moving their feet, making intelligent defensive decisions. I mean, fucking Chet Holmgren was scrammed out of a post-up matchup by Caruso, which was fucking crazy. Like, this Thunder defense is just special. Also, shout out Jalen Williams, too, because shooting-wise, he was horrid in this series. Defensively, rebounding-wise, even playmaking-wise, because low-key in that Game 6, Jalen Williams was making a lot of plays for guys, but bounced back today. Early on, it felt like the Thunder were doing one of those things where they have a lot of shooters and, not knockdown shooters as one of the, very valid critiques of this Thunder offense, right? Is that, they struggled against the zone a bit in this series, leaving guys open, leaving guys who can shoot, but if they miss a few, then they get a little queasy. They get a little hesitant. They're like, should I shoot this next one? Am I ruin the foot? Like, they passed up some open shots in this game. I was actually kind of low-key worried for the Thunder for the first, 6 minutes of this game. Gilgeous-Alexander made his first 2 buckets, but he wasn't really that aggressive. J-Dub was already looking shaky a little bit, and the Nuggets were just putting together a nice run. But that decision by David Adelman at the beginning of the second quarter, as the Thunder, climbed back towards the end of the first quarter, taking out Jokic and Murray at the same time, I just cannot fathom why someone would do that at that point in a Game 7, because that was a thing Nuggets fans complained about with Michael Malone. And David Adelman just did the thing that his predecessor used to do. And that was an immediate 6-0 run. And it was one of those 6-0 runs where, not a lot of time came off the clock. Quarter started off with a quick Jalen Williams drive to the basket to bring it within 3. Then Julian Strother turned the ball over. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander gets a layup. And then I think it was Peyton Watson that on the very next possession missed a 3. Yeah, he missed a 3. And then, the Thunder score on a Jalen Williams bucket. And the Thunder took their first lead of the game. And that just felt like the game right there. Because even though they allowed a little run to end the first quarter, the Nuggets were still kind of in control of this game. And it was clear that, the Thunder were looking a little anxious. And I felt like that settled them back in. And then, obviously, David Adelman came in immediately with Jamal Murray. And then, eventually, 30 seconds later, came in with Jokic. But those guys should have never been off the floor at the same time. Like, yes, you're going to lose the non-Jokic minutes. You might as well just bake that in. But to also take off your second best player at his peak, Aaron Gordon's been their second best player in these playoffs. But you look at Jamal Murray as the next guy in line, and you take those two in that two-man game together off the court at the same time. It's like marginal stuff like that, even like end of quarter stuff. Like in game 6, for example, when the Thunder, towards the end of the second quarter, were up 11, and then, what do you know, a few turnovers, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander picks up his 4th foul, and then the run continues. Next thing you know, Lou Dort hits a 3 to go into halftime up 3, and then the Nuggets are settled in, and they, recapture the momentum and, destroy the Thunder in the 4th quarter especially. The series has hinged on marginal stuff just like that. End of game 1-2, obviously, like I mentioned earlier, same thing. But, yeah, the Thunder have advanced. I'm actually happy for OKC because I've already talked about this before, but the Thunder are kind of like what I had imagined the Sixers would be like after the process if Sam Hinkie was able to, see the process through. Stacked draft picks. You find your superstar. You build around him. Now you're in a position where you have all these picks and you're very well set up for the second apron era. A lot of teams are going to be struggling to keep the sustainability of their roster together, but the Thunder have a lot of optionality. A lot of mid contracts, a lot of middle-class contracts, tradable contracts, a bunch of draft picks. You can still decide who do you want to put around Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The Thunder are just perfectly set up, and they're such a cool team. That's why I was rooting for them. And also I was rooting for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander because I think he's fucking special and fantastic. And I am really glad that these last 4 games he was able to, level out a little bit. And that's the thing with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's going to be consistent. He's going to give you at least, 25 to 35 points every night. And it's the other stuff he provides, the rebounding. The playmaking was a little hit and miss during stretches of these games in this series, but when he dialed in, was picking apart the zone, had some great passes up top to Chet Holmgren today. And now we have a set of conference finals where no matter what, we're going to see history depending on which team wins the championship. We have 3 teams who have never won the championship in their franchise's history, and we have the New York Knicks who haven't won since 1973. We're going to see something. I personally am excited for these 2 conference finals. You got the battle of the young stars, like I mentioned, and then you got a revival of an old rivalry from the 90s with 2 point guards who, very ironically and funny enough, were in the WWE event. I forget what it was over the summer. Wrestling fans can tell me what Tyrese Halliburton and Jalen Brunson were in. But that's funny. It almost seems like, quote unquote, the script was written. But 2 very good teams, 2 very good offensive teams, and teams that historically at least don't like each other, but there's the potential for a lot of heel stuff in this series. And then you got 2 elite defenses with 2 of the best guards in the game. And Anthony Edwards right there inching into the top 5 for me just as a player, just because of this impressive playoff run he's been on. I can't wait to see him and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander guard each other down the stretch. I can't wait to see these 2 teams, grapple and wrestle and MMA fight as they, exert their physicality and their defensive prowess on each other. This is going to be fun. This has been a very, very, very entertaining NBA playoffs so far.